I'm your moderator. I'm Mr. CJ. But I have some special people up here with me today. To my right, I have Too Free. That man, Too Free. He's wild and crazy. But he going to give it to you real and raw. And I have to my left.
Pressure in the building, people.
You got pressure. She going to put pressure all up on you. She going to ask what needs to be asked. And I'm going to introduce the two guests, and I'm going to have them say a little something about themselves here in a second. But I have to my far left.
What's going on?
What's your name?
Elam B. King.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Mr. King.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to let you introduce your name since it has a lot of syllables and a lot of words.
Listen here. Dr. Lynn's in the building. How y'all doing?
Just Dr. Lynn?
That's all we're doing today.
Yeah, starting
You
already.
almost Mexican.
Starting already.
You almost Mexican with all the last names you got.
I am who I am, right?
But let's get right back into it and let me introduce exactly what we're doing. So this show is a no-nonsense, raw, entertaining look at all things love, sex, and relationships. Let's get deep. It's the vibrations of the culture. Once again, it's about the culture, people. We're building it up about the culture. So the goal of this show is to support love, relationships, marriage, and healing. Sit back, pour a glass of wine, and let's get deep. So the first question is, I'm going to have my guests tell us how they got into the business of relationships. I'm going to let the life coach tell us why he became a life coach.
And really, I normally go by a relationship coach, but there's so many different nouns and verbs that they throw out about it. But appreciate and you giving me an opportunity of being on the show today. Originally from New Jersey, went to school at Hampton University, and marketing major, was always in sales since I was about 15. And so my thing was to try to make as much money as possible, as legally as possible. All right. And then
I was going to ask about that since you said 15. You know, some people sell stuff.
Yeah, it was newspapers. It was the New York Times.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Let me be very clear. It was the New York Times.
You know.
And I was good at it too. And that was my thing. That was what I did, you know, just sales. And so I found myself at, you know, in my mid 30s and, you know, kids happy, wife happy. I'm like, I'm missing something, but I'm not even understanding, because I'm like, based upon what people say, my life I should be happy. And so, at that point, I started doing a little bit more personal development. And a friend of mine came to me one day and she said, yo, you should write. My girl, Adrienne E. Bell, she said, you should write a book. And I was just like, ain't nobody going to listen to me. Like, I'm the man that did this in the marriage. I'm the man that did that or whatever coming up. And so nobody's going to listen to me. She said, you're the exact person that people listen to. I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But by that point, I was in a space spiritually to where I was like, okay, Faith, I've been hearing about you all this time. Let me just go try this faith thing, right? And I'm now a 3-time author. I have, you know, an opportunity of working with couples, whether married, single, pre-marriage is my best, and the one I love the most as well. And so my thing is when things happen in these streets, right, whether it's Montgomery or Riverboat or whatever, right, we always say we need to stick together. That's one thing we heard over this past week, how we stuck together, right? And then like in a week from now, we're back to the same thing, right? So my thing is that in order for us to really improve our communities, we have to improve our families, because a community is made up of families. Well, in order to understand a family, then the man and the woman are two people building that family. And so we have to improve the education from a relationship perspective as well. We weren't given the tools that was necessary for communication and things of that nature that helps families and people stay together. So that's just how I fight the fight, working to keep our families together.
That's what's up. He also has this game, as you see right here. I'm looking at that camera. So he has this game called Are We Ready Yet? So he'll tell us a little about the game later on, but I was seeing all these clips, man, and I said, as we were developing the show, I said, this is somebody that we gotta have on.
I appreciate it.
And I was shooting your clips out like, hey, man, we gotta have him on our show.
I appreciate it.
You are very insightful. You have a lot of knowledge. And once again, I want to thank you for coming on.
I appreciate you. Thank you guys for having me.
All right. So we're going to turn it to Dr. Lynn. And she's going to tell us why she's doing what she does. So you can better explain it than I can.
Yeah, because your explanation may be a little hard. So I actually went to school pre-law.
Mm-hmm.
And to be perfectly honest, there was this one professor that got on my nerves in the political science department, and I was like, I can't do this for the next 4 years. And I really bonded with my psychology professor and decided to change my major, and it just went from there. I left school and went and got my master's in marriage, child, and family counseling. Recognizing that the trauma that I had been through in my past around being a child with my family and the marriage that my parents had and how it impacted me, I really wanted to make sure that other children, especially our children, had a place to talk and be understood and heard in a way that they felt that they could communicate it. And then once I got that, I decided I wanted a doctorate, and I wanted a doctorate before I turned 30. And I didn't care what I had to do, I wanted that doctorate. And so went to Howard and was doing the marriage and family child counseling stuff while I was in school, and got that doctorate in educational psych, and where I really kind of focused on program development and program evaluation, and I've been doing the work ever since. I love what you said though, right? Like for me, the string in my entire career is ensuring that especially children and families of color get what they need, when they need it, and how they need it to be better, so that we can try to heal a lot of this past trauma that is impacting the way that we parent, the way that we communicate with each other, the way that we build relationship or destroy it, right? And also the cycles that happen, especially in marriages and families. You know, we've talked a lot about, or I hear a lot about generational curses, but really, we all have the ability to break those. We all have the ability to be intentional about that, but I don't know that we as people know that.
No,
and so that's kind of
Nope.
where and how I get my joy is just having real conversations with people.
Right.
I definitely am a reality-based therapist. Like, I'm not about to sit here and be like, so tell me about, like, no, let's have some real conversations and get into it. Which is why
So
teenagers.
you get deep.
I get real deep.
All right. Why teenagers don't go outside?
No, because for me, teenagers are raw, and they're willing to be raw, and they need somewhere that they can talk without judgment. That whole, I'm an adult. You can't say those words around me, or you can't express those things because of what I think and what I feel and what my values are. It's the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my life.
And can I just throw in, I love the baby boomers. I think they were amazing, loyal. They were some spiritually guided people, right? But and my parents are married 52 years this year. So that's all I ever knew of my parents being together. Love them. But the space that was missed is, how are you doing what you're doing? Besides trust God and love, if you have been married or if you are married, you know it takes a lot more than that. Okay. So, you know, what really to do to stay together, to walk that path, that journey, and know that life be lifing. And you wasn't taught that part.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So so just spaces like that, giving tools that's necessary. We didn't have that. And, you know, I can feel from what you're saying that now it's kind of like, okay, we know that. Okay, let me make sure my kids know. You know what I'm saying? Pass down the real versus the put stockings on when you go to church. I mean, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to go real. How do you really feel when you're 10 years in or 20 years in and you roll over and you say, I don't really mess with this person? Nobody talks about that.
Nobody talks about when you get mad and you really want to square up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how to actually manage that and communicate your way through it instead of allowing the anger and the rage to take over.
Right.
Not get caught. Right? Like, we don't want none of that. So how do we learn how to communicate to rebuild and build through?
Right.
That was never taught.
Nope.
So, Paul, do you work with teenagers predominantly?
I work with teenagers. Basically, I'm 15 to 30. So those individuals that are the young ones that are in relationship and talking about marriage, right? And all the way through. If they are married, I will continue to talk to them and work with them.
And then you work with potential couples.
Dating.
Married couples.
Yeah. What?
People who are in the already dating.
Dating, married, single. If you want to be with somebody,
Right.
if you want to be in an intimate relationship, then I would be the person to contact. I don't really do under 18, just for liability reasons. But if you've grown 18, I wouldn't say grown, but you know.
Old enough.
What about what?
Here you go.
They are individuals that I've worked with as well. That my education from a background perspective has normally been for he and her, but I have worked with clients of other cultures as well.
What about you, Dr. Lynn? Do you work with he, she, and they? Yeah, she works with you. Hey, why only you at?
I work with anyone who needs and wants to talk. Period.
Understood. But Mr. King hit on something. It's a word that I want us to talk about, and that word is intimacy. All right? That word is intimacy. So why is intimacy missing from most relationships as people grow?
Man, we need about an hour on that one right there, but I'm gonna try to button it up really quickly. When we say the word intimacy, I want you to think of it and break that up into me, you see. Okay, so, and here's the thing. If you're going to be in a committed relationship, you have to allow someone to see into you. I'm sorry. You have to allow somebody to see into you, and then also you have to be responsible enough to look and see into the other person. And so when we hear that word, most people think about what? Physical, right? Mm-hmm. Sex, right? Well, there's actually 5 different levels of intimacy. And so physical is just one of them. You have experiential, you have spiritual, you have emotional, and you have intellectual. And if you want to have a gauge inside of your home or where the gap is, take a look at those 5 intimacies. Are you praying together? Are you going to the same God, whoever that might be, right? Because that's going to go into the disciplines and things of that nature, whatever you do. Or y'all both atheists, whatever.
No, not you.
Right. So, and so that speaks for itself, right? You have the physical, obviously everybody knows about that one, right? You have experiential. What are we doing together? Whether it's us as a couple, us with our children, us with our in-laws, us with our friends. What does that experiential intimacy look like within your relationship? We have one, this is where people start getting a little lost at most of the time from a communication gap. You have intellectual intimacy, right? Do you care about what I do from a hands perspective, whether it's that I do podcasts, whether I'm a doctor, whether I'm a relationship coach, whatever the coaches that you had in here earlier? Do you actually care about what I do? Are we able to converse about the intellect? Or maybe it might be something from a movie or TV or whatever. The things that I care about, do you care about those? Right? Okay. And is there some collaboration there? And then last but not least, and this is where sometimes there's huge gaps, is emotional intimacy, right? The way that I feel, do you care about that, right? My feelings from an emotion, from a love, from a wanting to maybe, whether it's cuddle, whatever, or maybe just talk about my day. Do you care about the way that I feel? And those intimacies is where there's a gap where we're not seeing into the other person, nor we're allowing somebody to see into us as well.
But I think there's a difference, right? I think one of the things that we often miss, and people say this I hear it all the time in my conversations with people that are in relationships, is when you're talking about intellectual intimacy, I don't have to be into the same thing.
Come on.
That you're into
Speak
to
it.
care about what you care about.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
And when it comes to emotional intimacy, I think that's the part that is often missed is it's not just about do you know me emotionally, but do you create a safe space
I like
for
that.
me to be emotionally vulnerable.
That's what I was going to say, vulnerability.
I'm not communicating nothing emotional if every time I say something, you're like, oh, here we go again. Right? Like, that's just not something that's going to work.
I thought intellectual was more like we think or understand. So, for example, you see a picture and we can think on a certain level, right? So everybody don't play on the same level when they see it.
Right.
So is that what you mean by intellectual?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Love that point. You don't have to agree with all of these. You just have to be willing to sign up for that person's expectation in that space. You might not want to go to church. You might not want to sit down and watch the news. Literally, I had a couple where that was a responsibility that she wanted him to watch the news with her for 30 minutes a day. Now she wanted it like 5 days a week. They ended up collaborating on 3 days. You see, so he didn't like the 5. They came together on 3. We're on the same page. So whatever the topic is intellectually, are we at least able to? And there's the agree to disagrees, right? But if you disagreeing on like everything, that's a gap. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yes, it makes a lot of sense.
But yeah. What about when you get older? Like, you don't care about stuff when you get older.
Don't mind him.
You know, like your parents got 52 years. Your parents can pretty much do anything. And your mom was like, well, you know, she know him. He ain't got to.
And that is very true. And here's the thing. That's why if I'm allowing you to see into me and I'm looking into you as we're getting older, we're continuing to look at where we are. We might have been boning like rabbits in our 20s. In our 50s or 60s, it might get a little different. We're now on the same page. Once a month is probably good for, parents of my genre, right? Whereas once a month for me, I'm just like, I'm going to have a lot of aggression towards people, So again, allowing somebody to know that about me, and then you're willing to sign up for that. So you're right. You evolve with the person, and that's what another gap that sometimes can exist in marriages.
But the only way you can evolve with someone is for you to continue to see into them on all 5 of those levels.
Yes.
Because if not, someone's going to grow this way and you're going to grow that way, and you're not going to be able to see into each other and connect with them.
Okay, let me ask this question before we go to break. So you do have to be able to see into them, right? And be self-aware of yourself and them. So what happens when you miss the mark? How do you jump? You know what I mean? Because it could be times where you're going one way.
No, sir.
Trade it in.
Hold on, we got some professionals up here now. I'm trying to act civilized. How do you prepare yourself, or how do you get back on the same track?
It's going to be so simple. Sometimes people just completely miss it, right? So, but I know everybody here is going to be able to grasp this. But sometimes we kind of overthink some things, right? Okay, if you're at work. And you don't know how to do something, what do you do?
Ask the question.
Okay. All right. So when you're in school and you don't understand this problem, what do you do? Okay. All right. So we can keep going. Like if I'm baking a cake, Mama, what I gotta add in there, right? Why don't we do that in relationships? When you don't know something, how do you? And it's ask, and then. In every other aspect we're able to do that, but in matters of the heart, we find difficulty in doing that. I know for men, and I can speak towards this space, is that we were indoctrinated to not ask when it comes to emotions, right? When it comes to directions, everybody here looks like we're all in the same little area of growing up, right? So we was here before GPSs, right? Yeah. Okay. What's the one thing they said men like to stop and do what?
Ask for direction.
So you will lead your family off into the abyss of lostness instead of stopping back in the day and dropping a quarter in the machine and saying, I'm here, whatever, and asking for a direction, or stopping at the gas station. We grew up with men that were like that. Well, that's the transition into emotions as well, because inside of a relationship, because if we don't know as men what's going on, we've been indoctrinated thinking we're weak. So because of that, a man's got to do what? Man got to be a man. You got to figure it out. Ego, right? Well, we carry that to all aspects. And inside of a relationship, that is the last thing that we as men need to do. So your point of seeing into the person, we're not even working to do that because we weren't taught that it's necessary to be done.
But I think what tends to happen is we ask the question, but we ask it to someone else instead of the one that we're in a relationship with.
Yep.
We go ask our friend. We go ask.
Well, come on,
people don't know how to ask.
There you go.
Like, I feel this way, but it has no handle.
Right.
So I ignore it, and I just bully through.
That's a great example. That's a great example.
So I don't even know how I feel, but I feel, and it's like, well, forget it. I'm just gonna keep pushing.
And how does that work out?
It doesn't. But.
And what's the definition of insanity?
doing the same thing.
And then at the same time, you have, to the ladies, y'all ain't innocent of it, right? You have you were taught, it's okay to be emotional, right? But then you turn around and inside of your own relationships, you get mad at that man for being. You say, why are you being so sensitive? That is so. Come on, right? Why are you being so emotional? So here's the thing.
Why are you being so feminine?
So the element. Come on. Sensitive, emotion, whatever. So here's the thing. So the element that you need in order for us to communicate and grow inside of this relationship, you're damning it when it's time for us to have a discussion or when it's something that you don't like. Come on. A lot of times ladies want men to lead, but then when we lead in areas that you want us to lead in, we cool. But leadership also carries times when you don't know.
Amen.
And you don't know. So I'm going to still lead and now you're uncomfortable. Now we have some rocky road here. Right. So here's the thing: you got to take the whole plate. Don't take the green beans off of responsibility to be submissive. Don't take that off the table because I need to walk forward and make sure that I'm leading, right? And there's a lot of times, guess what, ladies? You're really leading. You're really leading. Right? Every structure in the world, if it's an organization, it has a structure to it. Everything that's successful has a structure. Name something that has no structure, but it's successful.
Here he goes. It's a commercial break.
Let's go to break. We'll be right back. That is structure. It's lived for many, many years.
What's something wrong with him?
Hey, how we get on Facebook? I'm trying to get the link to Facebook. Put it on your Facebook account. You got to go.
Okay, are you on Facebook?
I'm about to say, if you ain't on Facebook.
I wasn't long-winded, was I?
No.
Listen,
we want us to go. No, I'm sitting here like this, like, yeah, that's good. Come on. What you got?
But I love what she's saying, though. I mean, it's.